Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Eligibility Center convention session. I'm Ellen Ramsey, the director of the center, and I'm joined by Abby Reisenhoover, our associate director.
Hi, everybody.
So today we have just a few updates that we want to review with you. We'll start off with reviewing our business operations. We'll also talk through a few Play NAIA system updates and wrap it up with some policy updates. And of course, there will be time for you to ask questions through the chat feature throughout the presentation or at the end as well. Okay, so let's get started with some business operations. As a reminder, one of the key ways that we track on how well our teams are functioning in the EC is through our service levels. So we have a goal for each one of our functions to complete their work within a certain time frame. So we're going to go through each of those now. So we'll first start with our decision processing metrics. The domestic break and transfer team aims to process 85% of those students within 7 business days of the students getting ready. So all their transcripts in, on a short list, all of that good stuff. You can see that they achieved that goal this past year. Our international team aims to complete 85% of the international break and transfer students within 20 business days of the students getting ready. And again, the team achieved that, which is great. We're really proud of both of those teams for meeting those goals, since they're both kind of the more complex and labor-intensive types of reviews. And they were really able to keep up with workloads, even though we had some delayed seasonal staffing in fall of 2020 due to COVID and some fluctuations in our work patterns because of delayed competition seasons and things like that. So the fact that we were able to exceed those 2 goals is a really big win for us from this past year. Looking at decisions for the no-break students, which are the international and domestic students who follow that traditional timeline of graduating high school and then immediately attending their NAIA school the term after. We aim to issue 95% of that type of student decision within 3 business days of the students getting ready. As you can see, we were a bit below that this year, again, due to a variety of COVID-related reasons, such as the exceptions that were decided kind of midstream throughout the fall. But overall, still a pretty high percentage there. And most of that reduction was due actually to early decision students who we kind of had to hold back on until we got some different exceptions and technology pieces in place. So mostly the no-break students who were needing to compete immediately were not hugely affected by our delays there. Moving on to some of the other areas of our business, our customer relations team didn't quite hit their goal of 85% of phone calls being answered within 60 seconds, but they did make huge strides if you compare this past year to last year's really extreme wait times that everybody experienced along with the launch of Play NAIA. So we were proud of them for that. Let me see here. The 67% that we did achieve was largely some delays again back in the fall when we had those seasonal hiring delays. But ever since then, the team's been doing an excellent job of kind of recovering from that average that was brought down with just the huge workloads that come through in the fall that took us a little bit longer to get through. Moving on to documents, you can see that this is a really big win for us. So efficiencies that we've seen from schools using the high school portal and the registrar's portal at the college level, as well as other electronic transcript services, have really helped us decrease our average processing time. So I think in the early days, it was upwards of a week. We kind of reduced that over time to 2 to 3 days. The past couple of years, that's been about 1 day. And this year we were able to achieve processing documents the same day that they were received, which you can see here on the screen, which is really just a huge win. It's a great way for students to kind of start their eligibility process off by getting their document processing step completed quickly, and which sets them up for success throughout the rest of the eligibility process. Last but not least, we do track on accuracy as well. It's a metric that kind of balances out our efficiency goals so that we make sure that we are doing our work both quickly and accurately. So as a reminder, our decision accuracy is calculated by tracking on what's called a critical error. And those are any errors with the decisions either directly related to the eligibility status, the seasons of competition, or the terms of attendance. So any problem with kind of those three elements, we determine a critical error and feeds into that overall decision accuracy. And as you can see, we maintained our goal of 99.85% decision accuracy this past year, which is always a metric that we're really proud of. So those are kind of the highlights of our metrics. If you are interested in going through some of the data in a bit more detail, you can check out the handout that is available with the convention session and in your kind of like virtual bag. It has a full EC by the numbers report that'll go through some of these metrics this year compared to previous years and some additional information as well. So be sure to check that out. Okay, moving on to customer satisfaction. So we saw significantly more participation in both our member and student surveys this year, with more than 2,000 respondents in total, which is awesome. We do send the member survey annually every spring, kind of as the eligibility center processing is tapering off. And the student survey is now being sent as part of the student's decision complete email. So they're getting the invitation to participate in our customer survey as soon as that determination is reached. And then we also sent a reminder in the springtime as well. So it looks like that kind of modification has really helped improve the number of folks who are participating in that survey. We did revise the questions in our surveys in 2020 just to make sure we were getting a bit better feedback. And that's why you only see the 2 years on your screen here. So 2019-20 is going to serve as our baseline for this year and as we move forward over time. So as we all know, customer satisfaction suffered quite a bit last year due to the rocky relaunch of Play NAIA. So our goal this year was to improve upon that. And we actually set ourselves a goal of an average customer satisfaction score of 60% between both customer groups. And we're pleased to report that we did see a substantial increase from last year. Students are up to 63% satisfaction from 51%, and members are up from 29% to 57%. So that puts that average CSAT right at the 60% goal. We're super proud of the team for the way that they focused on recovering from the 2019-20 relaunch and kind of throughout that also really just supporting customers the best that they could throughout the past year and all of the challenges that we experienced with COVID, and we know that you all experienced on your campuses as well. So we're really excited to kind of build on that momentum and continue that trend as we start processing for the 2021-2022 academic year. Okay. So now we're going to talk about a couple of system updates that we've been making and will be making to Play NAIA. So we're pretty much done with the large, overhaul. We've been tweaking some things over the past year to just continue to improve performance of the site. We monitor performance and feedback that we get through our customer inquiries, through our advisory and feedback group, so that we can make sure that your all's experience is a positive one. And if there are any issues over time, we can keep identifying those and make continuous improvements to the system. So the first thing I want to talk about is actually not yet built. It's coming soon. But we're excited to announce a new partnership with the National Student Clearinghouse. who has been named the official transcript service provider of the NAIA. So with this new partnership, it allows students to opt in to allow the Eligibility Center to request transcripts on their behalf from any institution who's a National Student Clearinghouse customer. So, over the years, we've really seen that students can sometimes struggle with that transcript request process, especially if they've attended multiple institutions prior to seeking eligibility. Every school has their own transcript request process. They might have to track all of that down in different ways. Oftentimes, schools require that the student pays for each transcript request. So we just know that that can be a hardship for students. So we're excited for this opportunity to ease that piece of the process. About 30% of colleges in the US are part of that NSC network and will be able to utilize this feature. All other colleges, of course, will have to rely on the student to continue making those requests, and we'll try to ease those other schools' request processes as much as we can as well. But with the National Student Clearinghouse and this kind of automatic request process, we think that this will be a really big positive impact for the students as they move their way through getting eligible. So again, like I said, we'll request the transcript automatically. Depending on the school's setup, they will either send it back to us electronically, which means that the transcript receipt timeline can be reduced from 7 to 10 business days to send it through the mail all the way down to a couple of hours, which is awesome. And this can also save the students money. So the Eligibility Center is actually absorbing the costs to request each of these transcripts. But the partnership still allows each of the institutions to get their revenue that sometimes they rely on through their transcript requests through the registrar's office as well. So we're excited to be able to kind of take that financial burden off the student, at least in part. I do encourage you to visit the virtual exhibit hall here at the convention. The clearinghouse is here, has a booth there. So please feel free to stop by and chat with them about their research and transcript services and hear more about kind of what's forthcoming with the transcript requesting improvements that we'll be making in the near future. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Abby to talk about a couple of improvements that are already live in the system.
Thank you, Ellen. I'm going to walk through another big improvement that we had this year. So students now have access to a resource tab on their student dashboard. So when they log into their Plate NAIA profile, they will have this available to them. And here's where they can find information that they might call or email us about. They're able to look through and see what the cost will be for their student type. They can click through if they're a transfer student or a freshman student, what the cost might be for them, and then how the fee waiver process will also work for them. Additionally, they can click through on how to send documents to us, depending on their student type as well. So this is the main question we get, is how to send transcripts. So with this easily available to them, they'll have access to easily go in and look at this firsthand. And then they also have access to look at our competitive experience criteria. We've also linked all of our FAQs that we've posted due to COVID or even just student type. And then they also have those additional resources that you all as members might have on your dashboard as well. So we're hoping this will really help students get questions much quicker and not have to wait in line to reach out to us on the phone or wait for an email response back, and then maybe lessen the questions that you all get as well. So if a student does have a question, we highly recommend them checking out this tab first. Okay, now we're going to go through a few policy updates. So we do have a new student type and fee in place, and then just an update and reminder on some COVID exceptions, and then we'll go through an Incred update. So we do have a new student type and fee in place right now. So as you can see here, the fees are broken out by student type. And we've sent out several communications about this to students, and it's been in the score. So everybody should be pretty familiar with this, but what we did is we broke out our break and transfer student fees. So you can see here the freshman fee. Those are students who just graduated high school. Their fee remained the same at $90. And then we broke out the freshman break and then transfer students. So the freshmen with a break are those students that graduated high school but might not have any college enrollment yet. Those students will pay the $135 fee. And then those students who graduated high school and have any college enrollment will pay the $150. So this was to basically, we recognize that the two different students have, more or less transcripts that they need to send. So this just initially they were combined as one student type. So this breaks them out, and we realize those freshmen with a break don't have as many transcripts to send as they don't have any college enrollment. So as a reminder, this is in effect as of May 1. So students who are registering now will have that new fee available to them if they have any college enrollment. Okay, next we wanted to walk through just a reminder on a COVID exception that affects freshman students. So the COVID exception was extended to the 2021-22 academic year. So all entering freshmen can become eligible by only having a 2.0 final high school GPA. And then they must have that 2.0 collegiate GPA after their second or third quarter term of attendance in order to maintain that eligibility and compete the following season. This link on this PowerPoint is a good resource to review just all COVID-related decisions regarding eligibility. This is included in your convention resources that Ellen mentioned. You all have kind of like your virtual bag. And it's also available on NAIA.org under the COVID-19 hub. Okay, and as an Incred update, so as of January 15th, all international students are required to submit their international documents through Incred, which kind of streamlined the process of accepting those international documents. So far, we've seen a pretty steady flow of documents coming in. So we're still at that 2 to 3 week service level as the normal standard. And we do expect that to go up here beginning of summer as we get into the fall. One thing we wanted to cover is this chart here. So this covers the basics of what would be needed for eligibility purposes, but one of the most important things that they've identified for prospective student athletes is that they need to know which type of evaluation to apply for. So this chart shows that the student will need to know what their admissions at their NAIA institution needs to receive for their admissions or for transfer credit. So maybe your institution needs a course-by-course evaluation or certified copies of the original transcripts and credentials evaluated. So for example, Incred can recommend which evaluation is needed for eligibility purposes, but if your institution needs a GPA calculation for the student's high school experience, make sure they do not order the high school comparability evaluation, because that evaluation does not come with the GPA calculation and is designed specifically for confirmation of high school graduation and the student's timeline for the Eligibility Center's competitive experience review. So hopefully this chart kind of helps show the types of evaluation based on the student. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Incred. Garrett Salinger is the contact person for that, and he will be happy to answer any other questions that you all might have about Incred. Okay, we wanted to highlight a few new proposals that could affect eligibility if they are passed. So just as a reminder, we do have our introduction to legislation session coming up. So to highlight a few to pay close attention to for eligibility purposes, we wanted to talk through a few of them here. So first we have the definition of interterm. So this is hopefully going to create a consistent application and that true definition of an interterm that will apply for all students and institutions. And it will define the interterm as sessions as non-terms and credits earned as non-term hours. And to clarify, the issuing institution's transcript will be relied on to determine when the credits were earned. So I know there's been a lot of confusions on interterms and how they're applied, so that one will kind of just streamline the whole definition of interterm. And then the next one just clarifies the interterm for transfer credits for those continuing students. The next big one we have is seasons of competition. So this is to raise the standard by which a student is charged for non-collegiate competition from an elite level to professional level, and to provide specific definitions for what constitutes a professional level play for those students, whether they're competing in a league or those competing on a team but not within a league, and then those competing as individuals. So this is a pretty big one that can affect several students in several different outside competitions. There is a separate session on that, which we'll cover here on the next slide. So this will be an important one to pay attention to as well. Next, we have a proposal for our initial eligibility requirements, which kind of came from this past year of COVID and not many schools requiring the test score and students not being able to get in to take those tests. So this will create an additional opportunity for incoming freshmen to become eligible solely by securing a 2.3 high school GPA. Another one that stemmed from this past COVID year are some homeschool initial eligibility requirements. So this proposal is to permit a homeschool student to be eligible by earning 9 institutional credit hours prior to their initial collegiate identification. So this is one that we actually saw a lot this past COVID year and ended up instituting as an exception for those homeschool students. So decided to move forward with a bylaw proposal from that. And the last one we wanted to touch on is regarding the progress rule GPA. So this would require a student to earn a 2.0 GPA at their institution prior to competing in their second intercollegiate season of competition, which is different from when they have to earn the GPA after their second season of competition. As we mentioned, we wanted to highlight a few upcoming sessions. First, we have our Raising the Bar for Non-Collegiate Seasons of Competition. So this is where you can learn more about that Seasons of Competition bylaw proposal. And then we will have the Introduction to Legislation, which will go a little bit more in depth on the proposed legislation. And then we have our Convention Caucus, which is where you're able to answer any questions you might have and then be engage in more discussion about the proposals and hear any issues that others might have with it. And then we have our general session, which is the business meeting, which is where the legislation voting will take place. Okay, that is all we had for you all today. So thank you so much for attending our session. We will remain on here to answer any questions that came through the chat that we have not got to. So feel free, if you have any other questions, send those in and we will get them answered for you. Or if you think of any questions after, as always, feel free to reach out to Ellen or I. Thank you all so much, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your convention.
Thank you.